this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
Green keeps it himself, looking for the end zone. Isaiah Green, touchdown! Quarterback keeper for 17, and Marshall back up by 2 touchdowns.
Story toward Jackson, got separation to the 20, to the 10, and he will go. Lucky Jackson from 54 yards out. After a Western Kentucky record 16 catches a week ago, he gives the Hilltoppers the early lead today.
Pressure off the edge. Screen delivers. What a catch, Levias, who brings it in. Armani Levias to the house. Touchdown, Marshall.
And will 46 come on the field? Yes, he will. Corey Munson, the freshman, the true freshman out of Warner Robins, Georgia. As long as 48. This will be from 52 yards. From the far hash mark, John Haggerty, the punter, will hold. Jared Nash will snap it. It's definitely long enough. It is good! Unbelievable. The true freshman, Corey Munson, hammers it home from 52 yards. What a clutch kick there to win the ball game.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Another week. Well, it's really not been a week. Just a couple days. Steven's back. We're going to continue the series position group breakdowns. Now it is wide receivers and tight ends. A little bit of turnover from both of these units, but there is plenty of star power that returns. No reason for concern whatsoever. It's one of those scenarios. It's like, okay, we've got some weapons. Now we're going to see if a few other guys take that leap into becoming real factors in the offense. So let's talk about it. Wide receiver units and tight ends are lumped together in Phil Steele's position group rankings. And he ranks this unit. Ooh, not a friendly ranking by Phil. 11th in Conference USA. Ouch. Would not have guessed it was that low. And wow, I don't really know what to say about that. That's kind of a bummer. Despite that, Ja'Cour Pearson lands on Phil Steele's second team All-Conference USA team. And Joshua Simon lands on the first team All-Conference USA team. So in spite of those two factors, he ranks the units as a whole as 11th in the conference. Let's talk about some of these starters. Of course, the aforementioned Ja'Cour Pearson, senior, 5'9", 180-pounder, second team all-conference last year. Therese Traynor, sophomore, 6'3", 205. Jock Sloan, senior, 5'9", 165-pounder, and also the aforementioned Joshua Simon, sophomore, 6'5", 235-pounder, absolute unit from the tight end position. Steve, let's talk about these four dudes right now, and then we'll talk about some other names that Topper fans will get better acquainted with as the season goes along. So if you're ready to roll, let's get that mic live and ready to jive, and let's talk about some wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, several guys coming back, even though, we lost Lucky Jackson, we lost Quinn Jernigan, a couple 4-year guys that were just big for us. Quinn was a big outside guy that never really materialized. We got another one, though, Xavier Lane, senior, big outside guy. He's not listed as a starter. I think Therese Traynor is. Yeah. Which is actually big because Therese was a big recruit out of the Louisville area, if I'm not mistaken, but he hurt his leg his senior year and missed like his whole senior year. I'm pretty sure he gray-shirted when he came to us, went to South Campus. But really excited to kind of see what he brings on the other side of the field. Now, I know we have Dayton Wade, kind of like a 5'10", almost like a Pearson, Jock Sloan kind of hybrid, just speedy player. So, I understand the ranking because after those first couple guys, it kind of drops off experience-wise. But I think overall we'll be fine, especially because we're going to lean running back heavy with the quarterback transition. That's kind of inevitable this year. So we'll be fine. There is some talent in returning pieces to help guide the ship. And then we've got plenty of capable playmakers that'll be on the field. So despite the ranking, we will be fine.
Yeah. Like I said, it's very, very surprising to see that unit ranked so low in Conference USA. By far my favorite wide receiver of the group coming into the season is Ja'Cour Pearson. I absolutely love the dude's game. I love how he's the guy that can take a 8-yard pass and then take it the other 80 to the end zone and many times not be touched along the way. It's one of my favorite aspects of any football team to have a player like that. And Western's got one of the finest in the conference, one of the finest in the G5 as far as yards after the catch. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in a potential senior campaign. I love being able to say potential senior campaign since we know these guys can come back and play again if they want to. I think that's just so awesome. Dayton Wade, you mentioned 5'10", the 170-pound sophomore, played a lot of games last year, but not a ton of production, I don't think, but some. A guy you could probably count on in a rotation fairly regularly. He's got plenty of game experience. Now he's one of the guys you are hoping that takes the step up. You mentioned Therese Trainer, a guy that came highly recruited out of high school. I think some other big time Kentucky schools were looking at him, offered him, were trying to get him on campus, and then I guess backed off a little bit after the injury and, lands at Western, and it could turn into be one of those absolute steals from the class of maybe 2018 or something like that. I don't know exactly what class it was, 2017. A guy that I am kind of surprised that was not listed as a starter, but with what you were saying about Trainer, maybe you see why. Xavier Lane, because you just can't teach 6'4", 205 pounds, and the man's a senior. Fair amount of production over the past couple of years. Like to see a solid campaign. Something that Trace always likes to say about Doc Holliday, and one of his Doc Holliday isms is he likes to see seniors have their best year of their career, and that's something that I'd like to see Xavier Lane have. The best year of his career. We saw Lucky Jackson come on like gangbusters in the latter 2/3 of that senior campaign that he had last year, and I'd like to see the same out of Xavier Lane just because I think he's just such a big weapon that you can find on the outside and stretch the field. I mean, I'll say it again. You just cannot teach 6'4". A guy that I know you're probably excited about, another 6'4" guy, Craig Burt,
Yes.
JUCO guy. Haven't talked about him a whole lot, but I would not be surprised if he kind of quote unquote comes out of nowhere to surprise a lot of Topper fans and a lot of Western Kentucky defenders and opponents. This is one that you definitely need to keep your ear open for because I think he's got big play potential for sure. Jock Sloan, it is what it is. I know that you would like to see him take it up a notch, as you like to think of, you would like to see out of all of your wide receivers and tight ends. But, I think there are enough weapons at the wide receiver positions that whoever the quarterback is going to be just fine with the amount of choices and options that they have to get the ball to. And then when you couple that with the fact that you have two excellent offensive minds in Helton and Brian Ellis drawing up plays and trying to create mismatches and scheming, I mean, there's really not much more that you can ask for, especially also when you talk about such a good offensive line and such a capable runner in Gage Walker to, keep those defenders from stepping back and playing the pass. Let's talk about tight ends. I know for a fact you got to be super excited about Joshua Simon just because of what you saw from him as a freshman. Big playability. We saw that against, who was that? Louisville. He went for 70, had the 77-yard touchdown, I believe it was.
It was.
Yeah.
Louisville, yes.
So big play in big games. I mean, that's what you like to see, especially as a freshman. 6'5", 235 pounds, got the build, got the frame. He's a mismatch. He's like the Xavier Gaines type of guy. He's a mismatch. One of the guys you love to have. After Joshua Simon, you're looking at Spencer Owens, a JUCO guy coming in. And Stephen Wachowski's still around, senior, 6'2", 245-pounder. Dalvin Smith, redshirt freshman, 6'3", 205-pounder. So there's a little bit of production there after Joshua Simon, but, the tight ends kind of are revolving around the production of Joshua Simon right now. So what do you like about that group of guys?
Yeah, I think, obviously Simon's going to be reliable. He's kind of that red zone kind of catch-all safety net. He's huge, he's fast, he's a mismatch. And we're going to have several tall guys on the field and then some small guys in the slot. So it's kind of like pick your poison. And then you got, a JUCO guy stepping in there. And then if we can get Dalvin Smith on the field, he's actually a local kid from Glasgow who played basketball, started basketball, also played football, came to Western. And I've heard people say he's one of the better athletes they've ever seen on any competition field. So if he can get on the field, I kind of like having an athlete out there. So, it starts with Josh Simon. He's obviously 1A, 1B, 1C. But I think those other guys will get opportunities because we're going to run 2 tight end sets, even if he'll see most of those targets. But I think it's a good group. Obviously the strength is at the top, but I think there's plenty of talent behind Josh as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Joshua Simon's cut out to be an all-conference caliber player, period. Kind of proved that last year. And again, I think that Marshall and Western have 2 of the most versatile tight ends in the conference. I mean, I haven't seen Joshua Simon line up at quarterback and running back yet, but I'm not saying that he won't. I'm just saying I haven't seen it yet. But as far as the pass game goes, wow, what a lethal weapon to have. Big red zone target. I said it when I talked about Gaines, and I feel like Simon's kind of more the same. Big-bodied guy that can shield a defensive back off of him, keep himself between the defender and the ball, and at the same time outrun a linebacker if that's who they decide to put on him and try to slow him down. He's the same type of guy like Gaines that you're not going to be able to contain for an entire game. It's just not going to happen. And when those moments occur that the mismatch is there, if they A, can find him in that moment, and B, he can make the play, it's almost always going to account for a big play and maybe even some points from time to time. So let's talk about who you're excited to see out of all these units, wide receivers, tight ends together. Who are you most excited to see in 2020?
I'm most excited to see Craig Burt.
I got to admit, I did not expect that, but I knew you'd been talking about him for a couple of weeks, how excited you were. So
I just know that when we signed him, got him committed, everybody kind of looked at him as, you're not just going to plug and play a Lucky Jackson, a 4-year guy that was really, really valuable. But he's got a lot of the intangibles, the athletic abilities that, again, 6'4", speedy guy, going to be a mismatch. Just needs to learn the playbook and get some synchronization with whoever QB1 is going to be. But, he's not listed as a starter. Not even sure he's listed as the first backup to Terez or Jakor.
Nope.
But I think you're going to have trouble keeping him off the field. I mean, between him and Xavier Lane, those are kind of your big outside options. Jakor, Jock Sloan, Dayton Wade, Terez Trainer kind of on the inside with Simon. I mean, for the number 11 position group, I really like the composition and makeup of this group, and I really like Craig Burt with Helton and Brian Ellis brainstorming and scheming and masterminding ways to get the most out of him. I think that's a really good problem to have.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this ranking is so surprising because we have a good idea of what the weapons are there. It's just that the production in the stat book is not there yet. up and down the depth chart. And a year from now, if most of these guys return, then you may see that ranking with a lot of the same guys go from 11 to like 3 or higher, just because now there's some production. And I mean, let's face it, you can't just sleep on the fact that Lucky Jackson is gone. I mean, he was a phenomenal player. So, of course, that also lends itself to that lower ranking, because you got a guy that busted out, I don't know how many 100-yard games he had and set receptions records for like consecutive weeks or something crazy like that. So that you just can't look at that and go, well, that's a non-factor, because it is a non-factor. But I think I'm most excited to see right now Ja'Cour Pearson. I said it before. I just like the fact that you can run a little dinky 5-yard, 6-yard, 7-yard route, and then he can take it the rest of the way to the end zone. I love that. Of course, I'm not going to say I'm built that same way, because I'm not a freaking like slot receiver, but I'd like to think if I were a football player, I would not be the outside stretch the field Randy Moss type threat. I'd be more of the Wes Welker in traffic, weaving through the field type threat. So that's why I like Ja'Cour Pearson and his game so well. So how about let's go ahead and get this one out of the way, because we know what it's going to be. Who's the biggest loss from this unit in 2020?
Yeah.
From 2019.
What was that guy's name? He's from Lexington. He had like 800-yard games last year, and then like a 17 reception game, and then a 19 reception game. Oh, Lucky Jackson. Yeah, Lucky Jackson. I mean, the guy, he shrugged off a rough start to the year. I know the Louisville game, a couple passes bounced off his hands, not for lack of effort. I mean, the guy was a great player that started behind, his freshman year, he was starting behind some NFL players, some winning seasons, went through some coaching changes, not great offensive years, and ended up just being kind of, Ty Story's safety net. I mean, that guy would run an 8-yard curl, and it was automatic. I mean, 15 receptions, 17 receptions, 19 receptions a game. I mean, the dude's a good ball player. And it's going to be hard to replace no matter what kind of talent you have on the field. That experience was there because he was a solid player for 4 years on the Hill. So you just don't plug and play those kind of players into your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. Just the actual magnitude of that loss. First team all conference wide receiver, 94 catches, 1,133 yards. 12.1 yards per catch, and found the end zone, a handful of times. But you just said that earlier. How do you plug and play that? Well, you think there are a few guys on the roster, at least 2, that can collectively fill that hole. And then maybe in a couple of years, that 2 can become one guy that can do it by himself, not because, you need him to, but just because he can. So the loss of Lucky Jackson, any way you slice it's big. It's just big. It just is. I mean, you start talking about him. I'm sure some fans already consider him to be an all-timer at wide receiver, probably more fans than not. So anytime you have guys that are in that rarefied air like that, it's a huge loss. So piggybacking off of that, who's going to be the breakout player?
I think the breakout player is going to be one-way Therese Trainer. I think his athletic ability, the fact that he has been around the system, he gray shirted, so he's familiar with the guys, the coaching staff, the team, but he hasn't got to put it on the field. I think Therese Trainer, he's got to be hungry. I mean, he hasn't really got to play in 2 years, and now we've gone through a pandemic and didn't think we were going to get to play. And they've got him listed in a starting spot. So I don't doubt that Phil knows something. I wouldn't have guessed him in a starting spot. I would have put Xavier Lane there. But, we know Phil talks to Helton, and I have no doubt that the talent is there. Hopefully now going through their first week of practice, hopefully he's getting some familiarity with QB1 Piggy, and I think he's going to break out. I just think Helton is kind of in that same mold of being kind of a quarterback whisperer like Braum was, and gets the most out of his quarterbacks. And you have to have wide receivers that make plays. You know, if your quarterback's going to shine, you got to have somebody on the other end of that ball making receptions and some yak. So I think Therese is going to break out. Let's go.
So here's where I'm going to have to kind of default to what you think a little bit, because Ja'Cour Pearson, in my opinion, is a known entity. He kind of broke out already. You know, the stats could always be higher. You know, a couple more touchdowns, yeah, that could always occur. And I'm even going to go a step further and say that Joshua Simon is now a known entity, because we know what he can do. We just still expect to see more of it this year. So if you say Therese Trainer, I've got no reason to dispute that. The only caveat I'm going to put on that is when you talk about 6'3", 205, Lane 6'4", 205, and Burt 6'4", 190, I'm just going to have to default to what you say and then put the caveat in that whoever has the best chemistry with QB1 is going to be the breakout player, because I don't know if it's going to be one of those three outside guys or if it's going to be some of those inside guys or Joshua Simon. So until I can see, you know, if I feel like I should have to make this call until like 3 games into the season, but by then it's too late.
It doesn't sound like the number 11 group in the
It absolutely does not sound like the number 11 group in the conference at all. It's probably also a shame that, yeah, half of these guys probably couldn't crack the 4 deep down here as either. I mean, according to most other fan bases fans, you know, apparently we just get scrubs on our teams, and you know, that's that. Yeah, owls up. We dedicate way too much time to those guys. Way too much time. I mean, that was 5 whole seconds that we could have used for something else. What do we? 2020 MVP. Who's going to be the MVP of the unit?
Yeah. See, there's a method to my madness. I don't like to repeat guys if I don't have to, because Ja'Cour could have been all 3 of these. I think Jock Sloan could have been a couple of them. I mean, the dude has some injury issues, but I think Ja'Cour, I mean, he kind of knows he's coming into a senior season, even though we know that he could come back if he wants to play another year.
Yeah.
And be on campus for another year. I wouldn't be mad at him. I would do another year of college if I was 22 years old. But I think Ja'Cour, I mean, the kid's when you get the ball in his hands, he's a flash, but he's also not afraid of some contact. The kid's like a little bowling ball. And if you've ever been like physically beside him, he's like a brick house. Dude is huge. He's talented. You know, keeps his nose clean, works a lot. You know, maybe slightly undersized, but you know, that's not really a problem in Conference USA. I mean, you know, somebody that can break open the middle of the field. You know, that's kind of a luxury. You know, throw it over there and let him just make the play. So I'm excited to have him back. If we were losing him and Lucky this year, like, that would be painful. But knowing that he's coming back and leading that wide receiver room, yeah, it makes it a lot easier. And I think he's going to be the guy that we lean on to really make some plays. So it's definitely Ja'Cour Pearson, number 7.
Yeah, I hate to repeat. I'm not going to repeat everything you just said, obviously, but I am in total agreement. I think at the end of the day, when the dust settles and the season is over, if it's, you know, a full season or a partial season or whatever it may be, I think that Ja'Cour Pearson's going to be the guy that solidifies that group as way better than the 11th rated preseason ranking here. Hate to keep beating that dead horse, but Jowza. I did not. That was an utter surprise. I did not look at that ahead of time, and boy, I should have been ready for that one. So how about a hot take for these groups?
Man, I think, man, I really, truly had not thought of this before you asked it. But we've already talked about Josh Simon being first team. I think we have multiple receivers, tight end / wide receivers on the postseason first team list. So Josh Simon, I don't want to say it's a gimme because you got to put it on the field again, but I think Josh Simon's going to get there. but I think one of our wide receivers will also get there. I think we'll have multiple first-team players on the postseason's awards list.
Okay. I mean, hey, we've been singing some praises. We know what Joshua Simon can do. We know what Jacor Pearson can do. If a couple of other guys just come out of nowhere and surprise some people, it's completely possible. I'm going to go with a little two-pronged approach, and one is tongue-in-cheek. At the end of the year, when it's all said and done, this unit will rank way higher than 11th in the conference in whatever that ranking is. I don't know if that's total yardage or whatever, but they'll be way better than 11th. But seriously, though, I like Western Kentucky to have a minimum of 2,000-yard receivers and collectively find the end zone in excess of 20 times. So breaking in a new quarterback, I'm calling at least 20 touchdown passes for a new quarterback, or collection of quarterbacks, I guess, and at least 2,000-yard receivers. I may have said rushers the first time. 1,000-yard receivers. Man, god awful. There it is. I thought I lost Maul for a second, everybody, but I guess I didn't. So let's get out of here this week. Let's have some final thoughts talking about wide receivers and tight ends. Another, as we inch closer to the 2020 football season, it is almost here. How about some final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just again, not the most highly rated units, just on paper. I mean, Phil still has his reasonings, depth-wise and production-wise, and formulas that he used, I'm sure, to kind of derive where we land at. But I think both of these units are going to be solid. We're going to be fine. Wide receiver and at tight end, I think Josh Simon is going to be that reliable safety net and have a lot of touchdowns. And then wide receiver, I mean, we talked about 5-6 guys, kind of in depth that can make plays. And that's a good problem to have. That's not your number 11 unit. This is probably going to be a top, I don't want to say top 5, but, top 5-6 unit in the conference. I think we're going to be a little run heavy, but I still think we're going to open the playbook. That's what Helton and Ellis want to do. So, there's playmakers out there, and they're getting, some valuable, finally, practice reps now, prepping for our opener with Louisville. So, I'm just excited to see him play because there's several unknowns there, but a lot of talent that's going to be on the field. So, just excited to see how Helton and Ellis decide to use them and utilize them to their full potential.
I got to be honest with you. I just can't wrap my head around the rankings here. I guess it has to be just heavily contributed to the loss of Lucky Jackson, but we all know that there is plenty of talent on this roster. And for those of you that don't know or refuse to believe it, I think you'll find out pretty quickly that it's there. And then you'll just be in flat denial if you choose not to see it for what it is at that point. It would not surprise me at all, like you said, to have several guys land on all conference teams. I think you'll even see some guys maybe added to some watch lists that aren't on those watch lists already. As these awards tend to add guys for production in the beginning of the season. So it's several things to keep your eyes on. But for me, it comes back to who are the guys that are going to take that next step forward, because it can't just be all Pearson, Sloan, and Simon. Somebody, and maybe several guys, are going to have to take that leap forward. You mentioned Trainer, who hasn't really played competitive ball in a couple of years for whatever reasons that is. I mean, Xavier Lane is just kind of needs to take that last step in the senior campaign and just have his best season in a Hilltopper uniform. And then you've got Craig Burton, a couple of other guys behind there that could absolutely get in the mix because of circumstances or situations or just an opportunity and capture that opportunity. So who are going to be those extra guys on this depth chart out of that wide receiver and tight end room that, elevate their game and take this unit to the top half of the league or better. Because the talent's there, it's just going to be if some opportunity can present itself and then get executed upon. So until next week, I guess we'll come back. We're running out of position groups to do, Steve. I guess we still got to talk some special teams. We'll have to talk about some quarterbacks, and then we'll just wrap it all up with a nice, pretty little bow and get ready for week 1. So until the next episode, we forgot to do this last episode, by the way, but we'll let you send us out of here the proper way this time, and I'll just take over for Trace. So I'll say go Herds, and I'll do it. I'll put the S on it just because of Trace, even though he's not here. So go Herds.
And go Tops.
It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later.